contracts or grant agreements that may have a direct and material effect on the financial statements. So we will issue a written report on the results of these procedures, but again, we will not express an opinion on compliance. As I mentioned earlier, we did not note any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. For any unusual transactions or the adoption of new accounting principles, we did not note any unusual transactions this year. There was a new accounting principle that was adopted in fiscal year 23. In note 1 of the financial statements, you'll see the significant accounting policies that are used by LP&L. So this year, GASB 96 was implemented. So that is the subscription-based IT arrangements that was implemented this year. The result of that implementation was a $1.6 million reduction in the fiscal year 2022 ending net position. We did note, as I mentioned earlier, we did not note any transactions that were entered into by LP&L during the year for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. For our procedures, we did not note any material errors, irregularities, or illegal acts. As I mentioned, we did not note any material weaknesses. We did perform limited procedures on the required supplementary information that is included in the financials, but we did not provide any assurance on that information. We did identify and evaluate management's estimates over estimated useful lives of capital assets and the allowance for uncollectible accounts. We determined those estimates to be reasonable in relation to the financial statements as a whole. In addition, we did not have any difficulties or note any disagreements that arose during the course of the audit. We represented certain, we requested certain representations from management, and that is included in the management rep letter. We were not aware of any consulting with other accountants for a second opinion. And during the audit, and before, during, and after the audit, we have to evaluate our independence as your external auditors, and we did not note any independence issues there. In terms of audit adjustments, so professional standards require us to compile those for any known and likely misstatements that are identified during the audit, any of those that are material at least, and communicate those to you all. We have no audit adjustments to report there. And finally, we had no other material written communications between Weaver and LP&L. So with that, any questions?
Does anyone have any questions of Bryant? Mr. Mayor, you're cool? Any of the council members? Okay.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no questions, I will entertain a motion to consider a resolution to accept our clean and unmodified audit for the year that ended September 30th, 2023. Mr. Schultz, motion. Mr. Wilson, second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The vote is 6-0. And we will now go back to the regular order of business, and we will go into executive session. In accordance with 1 VTCA Government Code 551086 and 552.133 on competitive matters of LP&L, and 2 VTCA Government Code 551071 seeking the advice of and consultation with LP&L's attorneys on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body and the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Chapter 551 of the Government Code, and seeking advice of its attorneys about pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers, and 3 VTCA Government Code 551074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, and or duties of a public officer or employee Director of the Utilities, Chief Administrative Officer, or General Counsel. Just one comment before we go into that. Congratulations to Matt. You are now Chief of Public Affairs. So congratulations. Okay, we're going into executive session.
All right, at this time, City Council will also hold an executive session for the purpose of consulting with city staff regarding, hold on, order, please. We're going to move into executive session for council. Competitive matters of the public power utilities under section 551.086 and 552.133 of the Texas Government Code, and pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers, and hold consultation with attorney under section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, and personnel matters under section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. City Council is now in executive session, and we are in recess. Thank you.
Come back into open session, and the first item on the agenda is number 7, approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the January 16th board minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as presented. Mr. Schultz made the motion.
Second.
Mr. Davis seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion passes 6-0. We've already completed number 8. So, Joel, is that you?
That would be me. That would be me. Good afternoon, everyone. Last week, ERCOT took a pretty big step in our favor, and they approved a declaratory order from ERCOT approving the fact that our customers will not be subject to what we call uplift charges in the ERCOT retail market. And that's a big deal because it's not just the customers that are ours today, it's the customers that are going to be served by Lubbock Power and Light from now on. And so there will be no charges assessed to these customers for those uplift charges due to Winter Storm Uri. I think that was a big deal, and it's certainly worthy of note. But we do appreciate ERCOT taking the stance that they did, because that makes it very formal, very well known that that's never to be assessed to us. And these are could be up to 50-year bonds or something. So the ERCOT legal team was concerned that 20 years from now, somebody may have forgotten about all this and still want to try to assess those charges. And this precludes that from ever happening. So that's a big deal. This next week, the American Public Power Association is holding their legislative rally in Washington, D.C. Madam Chair, Dr. Fields, a couple of folks from the team, Matt and I think Chris, right? Chris, are you going? Yep. So we got a good contingent of folks to go to D.C. and try to convince everybody of what the right thing to do is. So no pressure on you all, but there's a few topics of interest that we need to make sure that our team is on. And from what I've been seeing, they are very supportive, and we certainly appreciate them. I just want to take a step back in time right now and just kind of note that we're at a pretty special point for Lubbock Power and Light. We are either have achieved or are just about to achieve all the objectives that have been set over the last almost 10 years. And that's a big deal. I mean, there are people that have come and gone in that much time, in my position and several other positions around Lubbock Power and Light, even on the board too. So this is a big deal for this, and I hope everybody takes stock in the accomplishments that we've all made collectively. And I would say congratulations to the board. I would especially say congratulations to the team, because I'll bet you can't find one single person that hasn't been touched or impacted by the changes that we've been going through. And everybody has stepped forward and done such a great job. I couldn't be more proud of this group, I'll tell you that straight up. So thank you to everyone that's been involved in that. We have a new path forward. We want to try to benefit our customers by looking at reducing rates where we can. Right now we're a little bit high in the TDU arena. We're on the higher end of it. We're in the mix. We're not out of sorts or anything, but we can be better. And we want to be better than where we are. So we want to take a look at our rates, see if we can bring them down some, at least to the middle of the pack. We want to take a look at our debt load and see if we can do some reductions in that. We want to be below 50% debt to asset ratios over the next 5 years, or even better than that if we can. And then finally, and probably most importantly, we want to look at our system and do whatever modernization that needs to be done so that we can be best in class when it comes to the reliability of the system. What we're going to be graded on going forward is just that. Everybody's going to want to know, what is your reliability? How good is that? How good are you handling customer issues and whatnot as well? Don't get me wrong, but keeping the lights on is going to be our primary focus going forward. We've got a great team working on this, and I'm really proud of the plan that we've got. And I think we've got the right folks in place to make this a total success. So if you can't get excited about that stuff, you're in the wrong business. With that, we've got a pretty good presentation for you today, and I think Clint or Matt are first to come up and just kind of give a recap of how this whole transition to market's been going, because as you know, the date to sign up has passed. That doesn't mean you can't still sign up, so that's kind of confusing, but the date tag, the formal date, has actually passed. So now we're in the throes of actually assigning people to their REPs. We've got good numbers, and we've made really good progress, so they'll give us an update on that.
Joe, before you leave, Madam,
Yes,
is there
Mr.
anything
Fields.
planned to congratulate the team other than just giving them a data boy? Do we have a?
This is next man up. I mean, you got to, yeah, you know, we have been talking about that, and even as late as late last week, whenever we finally got through the February 15th timeframe, we thought, we've got to do something. So yes, we don't know what it is yet, but I mean, it's one of those things too. It's a celebration that goes across the entire enterprise, but we certainly need to. And so if you guys got ideas for things that you'd like to see happen, I'm all ears. We're still kind of working hard to make sure this is still going, but there's going to be a point in time in the near future where we just need to step back and.
You might want to consider having the city council do a resolution put together that after 10 years, blah, 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 this was met, the key people involved or whatever, because that will memorialize it also
That's
in
a great
city
idea.
council resolution.
Yeah, great idea. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Is this a tag team with
It is.
Clint and
It
Matt?
is.
So Matt, and congratulations to both of y'all.
Thank you.
That we got through the very tiny rabbit hole and we're on the other side.
Yeah, and I'm going to walk through kind of some of these kind of facts and figures and what we've been doing the last couple of months. I know y'all know this, but to kind of memorialize it, I think Clint's hoping that I cover all the numbers and then he's off the hook. But I'm sure he's got some more in-depth numbers than I do. I'm just going to kind of focus on the top end. And so we talked a lot about how ideally in this process, if we could get 70% of customers to choose, that was a pretty good mark in terms of the progress of this overall. I will say that when the shopping window closed on Thursday, 65% of our customers had chosen. 65. And so that basically comes out to 70,208 customers that chose, 37,988 that have to be defaulted. But the interesting thing is that if you take it from Thursday until Monday morning, we had 70% that had signed up by Monday morning, and that number is going to continue to go a little bit. We had to basically put a pin in the map at a certain point to say this is when we have to close it down so Michael's team can do what they need to do to get everything organized. But we know that every day and week that goes by, we're going to have more folks that are making that decision. I know that there were a lot of brokers out there in this process at a certain point that said if this is too confusing, just be defaulted and then you can go choose your provider. So there's some people that followed that advice. Although we really encourage, let's get this done by the end of the shopping window and then you'll be transitioned over in March. So we're going to still see that a little bit. There's going to be those folks out there that have chosen a provider and have buyer's remorse, and the market will allow them to correct that. But we're just on our end not trying to promote that too much because we don't want folks switching around. We want to have that period of time so that we can get folks to their default providers and get them notified and do everything that we need to do up ahead of March. Because the next part of this process is that come March 4th, that as we've explained, whenever you naturally get your City of Lubbock utilities bill through the month of March, you'll have a finaled out section from LP&L, and then going forward, you'll be on with your new provider. So one of the things that we said that we would do is mail everybody a postcard that has been defaulted to a particular rep. And so those have gone out this week. I've got examples if y'all want to see it, but basically what we're going to do is if person 1, 2, and 3 were defaulted to TXU, Reliant, or Octopus, they'll get a postcard saying you've been defaulted to TXU, Reliant, or Octopus, and here are the numbers that you need to call if you want to discuss that with them, and also expect to get information in the mail from them in the very foreseeable future. So that's our next communication that's going out this week, and we know that the reps are following closely behind us because they've said that they're going to reach out and let these folks know that they're the new providers. But this is just a way so that you've got correspondence coming from both sides so that hopefully people see this, they know who their new provider is, going forward they do what they need to be able to do. Yes, ma'am.
Matt, on the default that are getting the postcards or were assigned, has that information gone to those 3 providers to say,
Yes, it has.
these are your folks or your business or whatever, so then they follow up? Now, what happens if somebody got defaulted, but then they chose somebody in that interim deal?
They will be on with that person that they chose. So even if you get to March 4th, right, there's still going to be a period of time that if you're defaulted, you can still go make a choice. We've explained to the public that the default process is that safety net just to make sure that you have a provider,
Right.
that your lights don't go out and there's a seamless transition. But they still have the ability to go choose. And we hope that they do. We hope that they do, that they don't just stay on with the default provider on a month-to-month rate going forward, that they at the very least lock in a contract with that provider, if not go sign a contract with somebody else. But that'll be a lot on the reps' end, trying to win over those 10,000 customers that they've now received, because those are the general breaks. Is that
So do the default people still have to sign a contract?
they can continue on month to month, but it's in their best
It's in their
interest
best
to sign
interest to
it,
do
because
that,
then they know
that's
what the rate is.
wise.
Yes, ma'am. As they go to the summer months, even if a little bit, they don't see their month-to-month rate going up.
How many meters, is it 107,000? How many total meters have chosen or been defaulted?
So 70,208 chose,
Okay.
and 37,988 did not. And there's one, it's not exactly the same, but I sent this to the group. I went back and looked at the scope of competition report that came out in 2002. It's a biannual report that comes out from the PUC that examines the competitiveness of the ERCOT retail competitive market. And so 9 months in 2002, when the rest of the state that's in competition went, 6% of customers had chosen a new rep. Now, in that instance, you had incumbent reps in those areas that people could stay with. And so that's why a lot of people stayed with their incumbents. But only 6% had gone out and made a choice of another provider nearly a year into that market. And so that's why we look at our numbers of 65% and say we're not doing too poor on getting people to choose, because historically that's a pretty decent number. I know a lot of folks in the market had said we'll be lucky to get to 50%. And so I was pretty proud of our folks doing everything they did to get that word out. And real quick, I'll just say that in the 12 months that led up to the shopping window opening, we did 150 public talks. And really 100 of those came in the 6 months that led up to the project's opening. We did 10 city council town halls. We did 4 town halls on KCBD and KLBK. And then, of course, just all of the work that folks in Clint's shop and those did, answering calls and directing people to the website. So everybody kind of chipped in. Joel did a bunch of these events. Dr. Fields did a wonderful job setting up all sorts of talks with churches kind of all over the city. And so couldn't have done it without those folks helping out and getting us in front of people. That was a really big help. So, Clint, do you want to?
I mean, the voice of LPNL's really said everything. I will just give you a few updated numbers from what Matt gave you, but we had a total of 107,304 easy IDs. That's what we go by as easy IDs. That's basically a meter. But right now we have 83,387 of those have chosen a provider, which is 78%. Of that 83,000, 74,670 are residential, which represents 80% of residential has chosen so far. For non-residential, 8,717 have enrolled, and 14,466 out of that. So that's basically 60% have chosen theirs. So anyway, yesterday's total, this is how much they're coming in right now. Yesterday's total, we had a total amount of 74,572. As of this morning, we had 8,815. So what's happening is a lot of these default providers are putting their people in the system through ERCOT, and it's coming to us as enrollments. So that's what's happening. They have those enrollments of defaulted meters to them or defaulted easies. So now they're doing their part. They're pushing them through ERCOT, comes through the ESG, and then it comes to us, and it's and so they're enrolled. Anyway, that's basically how that works. But you know, I will just say that the project management team, Ashley Bush and her bunch, her team with the project management, Michael's team, the market operations department, Camille and her bunch, Crystal Brown and her bunch with the USS bunch, Amy Day and the billing and getting all this, working with us on everything, and then everyone on the 5th floor. It took a team, it really did, because there's not one department could do this by themselves. So it took a team to do it, and everybody stepped up and was really, really helpful. And we're just so thankful that we got to this point. Now we just have to get everything transitioned during the month of March, and you know, we're still like this. We're still a little eager that everything's going to work the way it's supposed to, but if it doesn't, that's okay. We'll fix it and go forward. That's all you can do. So anyway, we're very fortunate to have the team that we do, and we're very optimistic that everything is going to go great from here forward.
Clint, are we still doing any kind of testing to verify that the system is working the way
Oh,
it
yeah.
should?
Yeah, we're doing testing every day. In fact, we're still working with Oracle on an issue that's come up with billing or enrollment in one of the cycles, but we've just about got it down. So, yeah, there's lots of testing going on. It'll be testing till the day we go live. So we're still staying on that. That's for sure.
So is March 1st,
March 4th.
March 4th is when the first people will roll over and be out of the LP&L
That's correct.
system and will be in their designated hitter.
That's correct, and that'll be cycle 2. So, you know, it'll go through all the cycles, and then cycle 1 will be at the end of that. So, you know, by, what is it, usually 5 days after we have it billed 5 days after each cycle. So the last cycle that bills 5 days after that, or before that, we should have them billed, and then it's.
So someone's March bill, they may have a partial electric and PCF
It'll be all. It'll be
for the March one, but
their
April,
last billing that'll be everything.
okay, so
with
April, they could have a little bit of the previous month, or it's all.
No, see, the cycle 1, which is normally the first one to bill, we're not billing it first. We're not transitioning it first. It's going to be at the end of it.
Okay.
So it may put it like March 30th or so.
Okay.
And then by the time we get the bill out, it may be March, but it will be all of the usage from LP&L. So when we get through with the March billing, everybody's done with us. They go straight into the market. The next bill they get will come from their retailer.
From their provider, okay.
So it's a clean break. There won't be any extra bills from us after this. No, ma'am. It will not.
Clint, do we have a plan for handling the propensity for high volumes of calls?
We've got, we're having problems with that right now because everybody, with the enrollment, it has slowed down some because they're, before the deadline, before the 15th, everybody was calling on, what do I do? What do I do? So that, we had, like I told y'all before at the strategic planning retreat, you know, we had nearly 7,800 calls in 1 week. So, I mean, we don't even have that many in a month. Normally, we'll have,
Is the callback functionality working?
it is working. Callback does work, but the thing is with callback, it only handles so many callbacks, and then it holds until some of those are dropped off and it comes on. You know, that's, we're looking at, you know, functions that can help us, try to help us get the questions answered and everything going with that, going forward. But to this point, it's going to be what we have to answer the phones and get it going. We have about 20 people right now answering phones. And that's on a good day.
Do you have any live chats?
No. No live chats. Any other questions? Matt?
I just wanted to throw one more thing out there, and it's just something that I found interesting in this process. Human nature, human psychology. I've gotten a lot of questions of who determined how long the shopping window is going to be open. If that shopping window had been 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years, what we saw in this process was coming into this past week, we had about 25% of our customers that had chosen, and then we had this wave in the last 48 hours. I don't think, it doesn't matter where you put that date, I think the final 48 hours is when these folks were going to choose, and I think we saw that in this.
It's kind of like going to church, they wait till the last 2 minutes.
So
Get through.
just something interesting that we learned out of this, just human nature, is that folks are going to wait. And that's to Clint's point too. They'll be calling in the next couple of weeks saying, can I do now? And so we just got to make sure that we're helping them out through that process. So.
Just one final question. Those that were disconnected, they had to be reconnected to get to an assigned person or something like that. Is that correct?
The ones that we will reconnect are the ones who aren't reconnected for a safety purpose, like if they're disconnected for work or something like that on it, they will not be reconnected. But the ones that are just sitting there idle for because they hadn't paid their bill or something, they have to be reconnected.
Okay, so
they can be transferred.
total meters, I think you mentioned, was 107,304 meters. I think that's the number you said. Is that correct?
107,304,
Right.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, we have 83,387.
Any other questions? Thank you, Matt and Clint. Great dynamic duo there. Are you going to take care of us through the budget and everything, Casey?
Yes, we'll be going through our December financials.
Are they on the screen or am I? How
They
do I
should
make
be there
the
now.
screen work? Oh, it's not going to work today. Okay. Oh, that's why we go, oh, well, Lord mercy, my glasses. Yeah, just tell us because we clearly can't.
Okay, so for December, the major thing that happened in December is we had our bond issuance to pay the SPP settlement payment. So we're going to see that run through our balance sheet, our cash flows, and through our ratios. Y'all can remember in September we had to book it back, so we had to book it in our payables, and then that's when it showed up on our income statement. So let's start with our cash. So we're up $8 million from September in our cash. If you look at our cash flows for the year, you can see that $22.4 million positive cash flow in our operating activities. That's going to be due to increased customer payments. As you can see, we had a $13.6 million decrease in our AR. A lot of that is going to be due to our disconnection efforts. We had a little over 2,000 more disconnects this quarter than we did last quarter. And then if you look at our cash flow from our financing activities, you can see a positive cash flow of $51.5 million. Now, usually we see a negative cash flow here because this is where our interest payments come out and our CIP spending comes out. But since we had that bond issuance, that's netting against it. And then in our investing activities, you can see a negative cash flow of $65.4 million. So it's having the opposite effect here too. The bond issuance is making this cash flow go negative, but it's negative, netted against some interest income. Now, if you look at our total assets, you can see we have an increase of $64 million. So when we issued the bond, it was booked into our restricted investments, and then you'll see that offset in our total liabilities by an increase of $66 million. So we booked it to our bonds payable and then our restricted investments. Overall, we have a decrease of $2.4 million in our net position since year end. Looking at our ratios, so our debt total assets is up 4% since September, so from 56% to 60%. That's going to be due to the bond issuance. So I just told y'all, you know, it increased our assets, increased our liabilities. The difference here is our total assets only increased by 7%, while our total bonds increased by 14%. So that's why we're seeing a little bit of an increase there. In our current ratio, it's at 1.06. At September, it was at 1.1. Now, we did discuss this in the FRC, but for those who weren't there, when we booked this into our payables, it booked it into our current liabilities. Since we haven't yet moved that bond issuance to cash, it's going to throw this ratio off. So once we move that up, we'll see this number, you know, increase to where it normally is. And then lastly, we have our reserve requirement. Excuse me. It's from 147% to 197%. Now, we did have an $8 million increase in cash, but that's not what's mainly driving this. What mainly is driving this is going into retail and our purchase power costs being so much less. So our reserve requirement is going to be down almost $20 million from what it has been in the past. So now we just have this surplus. Okay, moving on to our income statement and our budget to actuals. So for December, we should be about 25% of our budget. In our departmental expenses, T-cost revenue and our ERCOT hold harmless payment, we're coming in right at budget at 25%. Our charges for services is coming in slightly over budget at 28%. And then our purchase power, you can see, is coming in at 10% over budget. Now there's two parts to this. One part's going to be the $4 million additional settlement payment that we made in November. And then the other part is going to be when we moved our remaining 30% into ERCOT, our 4CP increased. So that's causing our T-cost expenses to be a little higher than they normally were in the past. Overall, we're under budget for our operating income at 12%. So I don't know if y'all remember, but for November, we were at 4%. We want to see about an 8% increase per month to stay on budget. So I am optimistic that in December, we did make that 8% increase. We just started out as a deficit, but I think we're getting on the right track to getting back to where we need to be. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions? Nope. Thank you so very much.
Thank y'all.
Number 12, Harvey, is that you?
It is. So I have a resolution before the board to consider amending our system delivery tariff rate schedule for 3 rate schedules. We have two of those 3 are going to be related to our distribution generation customers. As we've made this migration into the retail market does not have separate distribution generation rate schedules. We're going to, in conformance to that, we're going to suspend those 2 rate schedules. One is for residential and the other one is for small commercial less than 10,000 kV or 10 kV. That'd be a lot, wouldn't it? 10,000 kV. So we're going to suspend those, and then, so for all customers, if they're residential, there'll be a single rate, and then for all commercial customers less than 10,000 kW, there'll be a single rate. And that's as it is with any other transmission distribution company. They just have that single rate. So we'd be proposing to suspend those 2 rates, and then the last rate, the 3rd rate, would be our streetlight rate. We are just doing an amendment to that to get it corrected from the 26 cents to the 17 cents that it currently should be. So that is what's before the board right now.
So there's really three things. We're amending two rates and, we're suspending two rates and amending, rate schedule P, correct?
That's correct. That is correct.
And, does anyone care to make a motion to have that resolution to amend these three rate schedules? Mr. Schultz makes the motion. Mr. Harville seconds. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Motion carry. Those against? Motion carries 6-0.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for catching those and getting, now that will go to council, is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's an ordinance, so it has to go to the council. They have to do that twice.
I believe so.
Just one time?
Just once for rates?
Oh, it's a resolution. Great. So just one time, and they'll take that up at the next council meeting. Great.
And that'll become effective on March 1st.
Okay, so it's March 1st effective. Great.
That's correct. All right,
Okay,
thank you.
on the consent calendar, is there anyone in the board that wants to pull anything from the 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items on the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar. Mr. Harville makes the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries 6-0. And Joel, you can take the rest of the day off in your office. This meeting is adjourned, and thanks everybody for being here, and to the team, Ashley and your crew, and Clint and all of your folks. Thank you, and Felix, thank you for keeping us straight all the time in the purchasing world. And Kelly, we're glad you're here. Carry on. Thank you so much. Let's go home, gang.